There is a hidden thread in the universe, one that connects things in ways we still can't fully explain. A force that doesn't follow the normal rules of time or space, but once you see it, truly see it, everything begins to shift. You see, in the early 1900s, there were many scientists like Niels Bohr, Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger, and many others that started to explore the fabric of reality. They started discovering that particles, once connected, would remain connected, no matter how far apart they drifted from one another. And that if you changed one or did something to one, it would happen in the other instantaneously. Not in seconds or minutes or even milliseconds, but instantaneously, transcending time and space. Now, Einstein actually called it spooky action at a distance, and for good reason, because he didn't believe it at first. To him, this violated the very nature of reality, or at least how it was understood leading up to that point. But then over the years, physicists like John Bell and Aspect proved it was real through actual experiments that confirmed the theories brought forward by those like Bohr and Schrödinger. In fact, in the 1980s, Aspect conducted an experiment where he entangled two photons, which are just particles of light, and sent them in different directions towards different detectors. However, while the photons were in flight moving towards these detectors, he changed the settings of each detector randomly, ensuring that neither photon could know in advance what the measurement it would be facing. And what was found is that the information that was shared with one photon instantaneously also was shared with the other, even though it was only shared with the singular one. And it did not matter how far apart they were. They could have been galaxies apart, and this communication would still be instantaneous. Because they were connected, they were entangled. It showed that quantum entanglement absolutely exists, and it defies everything classical physics thought was possible. But this is not just about particles, it's also about you. Because if you are made up of those same subatomic particles that can remain connected across galaxies, then what about you and the thoughts you send out, the emotions you hold, the intentions you imprint into the world? And to take this even further, if everything in the universe was initially entangled, that is to say, everything was a part of the primordial energy that then exploded outward in what we know as the Big Bang, then separation is actually an illusion. You are connected or entangled with everything. And if everything in the universe is made of energy that we know now is the case, if you are made, again, of those same particles, what does this imply when it comes to our lives and how we can shape our reality? What this actually means is that we can activate certain things within ourselves that draw different outcomes into our lives depending on what we activate. Keep in mind that everything exists within the universe, but what are we activating within ourselves? And through activating certain energies within ourselves, what is that entangled with as far as its physical equivalent? At the highest level, again, you are entangled with everything connected to it all. And if we are coming from this primordial explosion that gave birth to what we call matter, then it is all entangled. And ancient wisdom teachings have been aware of this for thousands of years. There are ancient masters who were aware of this information, even if they didn't have the modern day scientific data, they knew that this was the case. And now the data has started to catch up. So in this video, we are going to cover how to get this to work to your benefit, how you can practicalize this understanding to actually get new results in your life, because we don't just want information, we want transformation. How can you actionize this so that you start getting new results? And what is it you can activate, and how can you activate these things that will actually draw to you what you want in your reality? So to make this work, we have to touch upon something I mentioned in the intro, is that everything exists and absolutely everything is connected. However, just because everything is connected, it doesn't mean if you do one thing, you will automatically get just anything at a random place. It depends on what frequency or what energy you're connecting to, which is what will give you the equivalent of whatever that thing is. So I want you to think of it in this way. What you connect to in your inner world, like I mentioned, activating certain things within your inner, is what you will then start to receive in what's called your outer world, and the outer world being your physical life. So to explain the inner and outer world very quickly, you can think of your inner world as your thoughts or the mental side of yourself, and also your spiritual side of yourself. Mental, simply put, thoughts, your visualizations, your imagery. It's not physical, it is non-physical, but that is still a part of yourself, right? The thoughts that you entertain, the thoughts that you create yourself, the ones you attract in, that is influencing you. The spirit side of you is your connection to the all. So this is your connection to God, to source, to everything. However, it is also the emotional self, energy in motion. So when you are in certain feelings, you are also connecting to that part of yourself. Now, the physical part of this, you already understand. Most of us, again, especially since most of us were trained to be materialists, know this to be the case, that we live also material, physical existences. So this is the realm of your five senses as you're moving through time and space in the ways that you already know. And so it's these three parts of yourself that make up you. However, it is what you are doing on those inner planes of your existence that starts leading to what will start showing up in your physical world, because the outer world follows the inner world. This is actually cause and effect at a higher level. Again, something that ancient cultures, or at least the masters and initiates in these cultures, understood. That the inner causes you are activating will lead to the outer effects that you experience. So essentially, the thoughts you are dwelling upon or activating in your inner world, mixed with the feelings or the emotion that you are in most often than not, is what's going to lead to the effects or the physical manifestations, the physical life in which you'll live. Most likely, or most often, showing up as new opportunities in your life. Now keep in mind how I mentioned there was this primordial energy, this kind of everything being together and then exploding outwards, or kind of creating the variety of everything that we have now, but it's all at its core the same thing. Well, I want you to think of matter and energy in that same way. You see, energy or spirit, which we can connect to that side of yourself, is the top of the pole in this way, where it's kind of pure energy. And at the bottom we have matter. And so many of us have been taught that these are two separate things, but in fact they are of a like kind. They all come from that same initial explosion, if we want to use the Big Bang Theory and tie that in here. However, even though they appear as very different things, they are of a like kind, just at a varying rate of vibration. They are at a different rate of vibration. Physical matter is a denser, slower rate of vibration, which allows it to show up physically in the ways that we see it, which allows us to perceive it through our five physical senses. However, if you were to raise the vibration of this, it would start entering more the quantum realm again and would cease being what we call physical. But keep in mind that these are all the same things, just expressing themselves differently, just showing up differently based on their rate of vibration. And so this is to say, from a practical standpoint, that it takes longer for things to physically show up in your life because it is a slower rate of vibration, which means you need to have what's called concentrated particle flow in a singular direction or focused on something before the physical equivalent starts showing up. And so a lot of people will ask, well, I've been thinking better, I've been feeling better, why are things not changing? Why am I not getting inspiration? Why am I not getting new opportunities? Because you haven't done it long enough, or because even though they are or have increased their positive thoughts higher, their feelings to a better feeling place a little bit more, most of the time they are still thinking negatively, or most of the time they are dwelling in negative emotion. And therefore, the negative, or the things they don't want, continually show up in their life through different, again, opportunities for that, different circumstances, different situations, different people, and so on. So how can we change this so that we are now having the more positive scenarios show up in your life? And this is actually where one of the main laws of the universe, the primary laws, comes into play. And this is known as the law of balance and harmony. And it is crucial to understand this. This is a law that will have a cascading effect in your life. Not just something that will have little effects in your life, but can create wholesale changes if you actually embrace it. You see, the law of balance and harmony is trying to keep things in harmony at all times, and goes to work in harmonizing things when they're out of balance. Now, the way it does this is, again, from the inner world to the outer world. What it means is that if your inner world and outer world are out of balance, balancing forces have to come in order to bring balance back. So if your inner state is one way and your physical environment matches what that inner state is, as in they line up, then balance has been restored and harmony has been restored as well, or is being maintained. It doesn't matter if it's in the positive or negative direction. Do not be confused by the word harmony meaning like good or peaceful or calm. That's not what it means in this case. It means means just harmonizing with whatever frequency you've been putting out, right? So for example, if you've been thinking from a fear-based place and you've been feeling fear, then the harmonizing of that in the physical are things that are the equivalent of fear. That is how it balances, because it's matching what you've been doing in the inner world. And so our job is to actually get ourselves out of balance by thinking better, by feeling better, and we will go over some tools to do this. And then there's only two ways for things to balance when you do this. The first way is the trap most people fall into, because they start doing this and they start feeling good, they start thinking better, they start actually committing to this, and then something happens. And now they're not feeling so good anymore. They're not thinking so well. A trigger comes up and it completely throws them for a loop. And so their thoughts and their feelings go back to the equivalent of their physical environment, and balance has been maintained. So if you've come up here and your physical environment is here, you've now come back down to match your physical circumstances. So the balancing forces go, okay, balance and harmony has been maintained. But what happens if you maintain the inner state? You keep feeling good no matter what. You keep thinking the best thought that you can reach for as often as you can, and you do not get sucked back down here. Well, there's only one other way in which balance can be maintained. This has to come up. Your physical circumstances have to change. Now, this one takes longer, like I mentioned, because even though energy and matter are of a like kind, they're at different rates of vibration, and it takes more concentrated energy in order to change the physical. And so this one happens pretty quickly, because your thoughts and your energy just go right back down to meet the environment as it is. But if you want to change the environment, you have to ignore the sense data of your physical world. You have to have more faith in the vision, in the positive and everything else than the current physical circumstances. And if you do that and you stay here, even when the physical seems like it's not going to do anything, it will over time have no choice but to come up and balance with this new level that you are operating from in the inner world. Because the law of balance and harmony and balancing forces have to come in. Now recognize that this is a law. This is not something that works for some people and doesn't work for others. If you do this, balancing forces will have to take effect. Keep in mind that balancing forces do not care which way it balances. It does not have a moral code in the same way we do. It doesn't create morals. It just goes, okay, what matches? How can we balance? That's what we're going to go for. And if you don't balance by coming down, there's only one other way for it to balance, by the physical coming up to match the frequency that you're now on when it comes to the inner world. Think of it this way. If we use the quantum entanglement argument, the thoughts and the feelings that you are maintaining are sending out the signal to the universe to bring the equivalent of whatever that is to you. The problem is that most people are sending out that quantum communication. Again, remember what happens, what in one photon or one particle happens instantaneously in the other. And so if you're sending out the negativity, if you're sending out those feelings, it's going to communicate with the equivalent of that and bring that into your life. One way you can think of this is an analogy called the buffet analogy. You see, if you're eating at a buffet, and this is the universal buffet, and again, everything exists, every possible thing to eat and consume and try and experience is there. A lot of people in the inner world essentially are eating something they don't like or don't want or feels terrible, and instead of choosing something new in the buffet, which would be new thoughts and new feelings to go experience, they keep eating the thing they don't like, they keep dwelling on it, and just start complaining about it. They're complaining to the chef whose job is just to cook whatever this is, and there's all these different chefs, infinite chefs cooking different things, to change this specific dish, as they continue eating it and saying it's disgusting and everything else. Rather than instead of doing that and complaining about this, because everything's allowed to exist, everything does exist, right? You can't remove that from existence, but you can absolutely choose something new in the buffet. And so if you go and choose the new thoughts, you focus on something new, you go to that thing and you start actually eating something that you enjoy and put your focus more on that, now you're sending out that communication from yourself out. And if you send that communication out enough, you will start attracting the physical in, because you will be focusing enough energy and power and concentrated particle flow for the physical to start coming about, which again is a denser rate of vibration that takes more time. Keep in mind this idea that I got from a mentor, which is complaining about your current circumstances is the glue that keeps you stuck to them. Why? Because when you're complaining about your current circumstances, what are you doing in the inner world? What are you choosing in the buffet? Well, it's probably very negative. You're focusing on what you don't want. You are then sending out that communication, which is going out and then just giving you more of that back to maintain balance and harmony. If you want to rebalance a new physical world into your life, you need to go choose different things in the buffet. You need to stop complaining about what is and what's here already, because everything exists, absolutely everything, and choose the things that you actually want in your life and to start looking at those more, giving your energy to those things more. Now, I will actually give you how long this will typically take. Now, I want to be very clear on this because some people will be like, well, it's taking me longer, because there's a very powerful word that's going to be said when I go over this, and it's known as the quantum to Newtonian transition point. And what this says, and this is the important part, is that concentrated, that word, particle flow, for 6 to 8 weeks in one particular direction, meaning what are you doing in the inner world? Is it more positive? Is it more high conscious? Is it more higher energy, higher thought, higher emotion? For 6 to 8 weeks will lead to dramatic changes in your physical. Concentrated particle flow. What this means is you are thinking and feeling it most of the time. This is why we get quotes like from Earl Nightingale in The Strangest Secret, you get what you think about most of the time. Most of the time. That's not 2% of the time. That's not 25% of the time. That's not 40% of the time. That's at least, at bare minimum, 51% of the time, which will then help you get to the higher percentages. But that is concentrated particle flow when you're starting to get to that place. So if we connect to this infinite field of everything and we stay connected to the things we want to bring into our lives, they will start to show up physically. Opportunities to bring them about will start to show up. Certain circumstances will start to change. So keep this in mind. The outer world follows the inner world. It is what you are doing in that inner world place through your thoughts and feelings, to keep it simple, that is going to draw to you the physical opportunities and physical changes that you are looking for. If you are just in the physical trying to change the physical, you will never get far. But if you go into the inner world and change from there, choose new things in the buffet, send out a new signal, that again is going to give communication to these things in the field to bring back that equivalent. If you put yourself out of balance up here and stay there so the physical has to come up, things will absolutely begin to shift. Now let's go over some things you can do. I'm going to give you some tools that you can focus on to start this process. And to show you that this is something that absolutely works, not just for me or just random someone else, it works for everyone that does it. Here is a few little results from some of our clients in our program Max It who are utilizing these principles at a deep level to show you this absolutely works if you use it.
Let me just say this shit's working, like, big time. I went from being on the back roads to the interstate. Everything's moving really, really fast. April was the most money I've ever made in my life. I made like $20,000 last month.
I mean, really I think it was like within 2 or 3 weeks of starting to work with Dave. I had the company I work for now, basically they were like, hey, we want to offer. I went on an interview. It was very good connection, very good positive vibes with the people. I liked the people. And they were like, hey, we want to offer you, this is when you can start. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was just like a good situation. And I've been doing very well there now. I just love my life. So it's been good.
But I sold two of my biggest deals ever during this course, 1.25 million, and I attracted them effortlessly.
That there is a seamlessness and a holisticness in Max It that is missing in other courses. Some courses, they don't hold accountability. Some courses teach you philosophy, but they don't teach you application. Other courses have no way for you to grow as a group and amplify the learning experience. Other courses don't create a level of accountability and responsibility and written documentation and create an infrastructure for you to actually do that, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel yourself, right? Those are things that are unique in the way Max has done that I have not seen in other courses. And I've gone through quite a few very famous courses, for lack of a better term.
So please know that this will work if you utilize it. And if you do want to learn more about our program, you want help with that, you want guidance, you want accountability at a very high level. This is a very high level program. You can check out more information through my first link below. Now let's jump into some of the tools you can start with right away. So the first thing is I need to draw your attention back to what I already said, which is you get what you think about most of the time. And so we need to start more consciously applying this in our lives, because most people are going around 95% of the time unconscious throughout their whole day. They're in a subconscious programming. They're being hooked into an agenda. They don't even know what they're thinking about or feeling about. And so the first thing we need to do is snap ourselves awake and be aware of, what am I even thinking about? Because what I'm thinking about is activating that on the mental plane in the inner world. It's also going a long way to how you're feeling. Checking in on how you're feeling. Because again, if you're feeling like crap most of the day, that's the signal you're sending out, that the law of balance is now working with. If you're thinking negatively most of the day, same thing. Again, there is the infinite buffet. You can absolutely connect to anything you choose. But what are you actually connecting to most of the time? So the first exercise I'm going to give you is just called environmental cues. Now, this is something like a vision board. It's something that works, and why people talk about this, because what does a vision board do? It basically, on a board or however you want to do it, gives you a visual representation of things that make you feel good. It gives you a visual representation of your vision that you can focus on. When you're looking at this and you're focusing on it, you're thinking about it. You're also feeling good, because these are things that you want. These are things that excite you. And so the reason vision boards work, so long as you're looking at it often enough, is it is a trigger to get you to think and feel a certain way, to essentially move up in the buffet and choose things that you actually enjoy. And now you are suddenly focused on these things, which again is sending out that signal. Now, the danger with vision boards is a lot of people will make them and never look at them, never engage with them. They'll make them and their mind will just kind of put them in the background and phase them out, and you'll never see them. So if you do something like a vision board, the crucial thing is to expose yourself to it often. The more you look at it and connect to it, the better. And so one thing you can also do is, if you do a vision board, for example, on a kind of like a Photoshop or something, and put everything you want in there and you feel good about it, hang it up everywhere in multiple places where you're going to see it. So you're going to go do one thing and boom, there it is. And it gets you to think about it for a little bit. Now you're taking that energy into something else. And you're walking to your door and boom, it's on your door. So you're thinking and feeling about it even more often. Again, it is not about just having the thing out there. You need to be thinking about it. You need to be able to interrupt the pattern you're in during your day to start thinking about these things. And when you have triggers in your environment to do that, it makes it a lot easier, to the point where you can start doing it automatically. Now, one way you can go about this that's very powerful is to hang up all over the place what is known as your DCA, or definite chief aim. Now, if you do not have a definite chief aim, then that might be an issue when it comes to being able to focus on what you want in the buffet, which is very important. Being focused is crucial. A lot of people wing it and just think, oh, I'm just gonna allow myself to go wherever, but it never works. You will just be up and down the buffet, never focusing on anything. And what did I say with the quantum to Newtonian transition point for bringing new things into your life? Concentrated particle flow, focused particle flow. If you're going up and down the buffet, or you're just, you're a ship that's going in one direction, now another direction, now another direction. No, I want to go this direction now this direction. You will never get to a destination, and you will cause yourself all kinds of hardship. But if you have a focused thing that you're going for, do you feel good about and feels like the best next step for you? Well, suddenly we're cooking. And so if you do not have a DCA, that's one of the first things I would ask you to determine, because it will go a long way to you being able to actually influence your reality. So at the end of this video, I'm going to go through a process, or link you to something that will go through a process to help you develop a dream, a DCA, and everything you need around that, so that you are moving in the direction you want to go powerfully and in a very excited way. Now, if you do have a DCA, what I recommend you do is hang it up in many different places where you visit often during the day at eye level. So for example, I have them on the back of my office. I have them on a corkboard right outside my office. I have one hanging up right where my pet food is, because every time I'm going in there, I see it. I have it in other places I know I look all of the time, even if I'm just looking up kind of mindlessly and I see it, and it locks me back into that focus, meaning my inner world is now focused on that as well. And so I just take printer paper, I fold them in half, about 10 sheets, write my DCA in big letters so it's, pops and is very easy to see, and then I hang it up all over the place to continually remind me of what that is, so that I'm thinking about it throughout the day. And this works so well. A lot of people won't do this because it sounds too simple, but if you want to be the person who starts getting results, I would invite you to actually do it. And if you don't have a DCA, again, if you want to start getting results, I would invite you to do that too. Now, one thing that you can do if you want to do this as fast as possible, that this can be extreme or something that, is intense. You don't have to do this, but it will help you get results quickly. And it's to do a 7-day challenge where you are creating an environment and standards that allow you to think and feel from that inner world place most of the time in a direction that you want to go. Now, this is going to do a few things. Not only will it help you build momentum in the direction very powerfully, again, concentrated particle flow, but it's also going to show you the feeling or the difference between being like that and being the self that's directionless or not, thinking negatively or whatever else. It's going to create this contrast frame that is very powerful and will encourage you to keep up these habits so that you can start manifesting what it is you actually want. Now, you can create your own 7-day challenge, but I've come up with a few things that are very useful that you can do during this challenge, so I'm going to read them out here. The rules of this challenge could be, for example, first and foremost, limiting social media, especially things that cause you to scroll. Again, when you're scrolling on social media, imagine what energy and different thoughts and different things you're exposing yourself to and what those are doing for your inner world. Now, there's some great stuff on social media, but a lot of it is drama-based, is fear-based, all of these different kinds of things. So at the very least, limit it, and if you want to go very extreme, have none of it for the next 7 days or whenever you start this. This is going to help you to focus your thoughts and energies in ways that you want rather than having them hijacked by whatever you're watching. The next is to have only specific material you consume that helps you feel better and think better. So you can identify what that is, and periodically through this challenge, you can start watching those things to uplift your thoughts and feelings. Now, the key here is to not use it to be distracted, because even good content can be used in a bad way if you're using it to distract yourself from something that you should be doing or something that's going to help you along doing this, right? So for example, watching 8 hours of YouTube videos of even this content would be classified as distraction and in fact negative when being used in that way. Again, if you watch a video like this, then get inspired and it inspires you to go out and actually take some action towards these things, that's the perfect kind of relationship to it in my eyes. But if you're watching, except in rare cases, 8, 10 videos in a row, that's usually not a good way to go about it, and it's now becoming more of a distraction. But again, have some things aside that help you to feel and think better, because again, when you're doing that, it's always working in your favor. The next, like I mentioned, use that DCA strategy that I recommended. Now, if you do not have a DCA, the video at the end I link you to, I would have you watch that first before you take on this challenge. If you expose yourself over 7 days, even just 7 days, to your DCA all of the time, you're going to be surprised at how much it changes your thinking and your feeling and what starts happening in your life. On top of that, you're going to visualize about your DCA very often. This activates that mental side of yourself that we talked about, and it also will activate the spirit side of yourself, because as you visualize your DCA, you're going to start feeling good about it too. Now, you want to do something that Neville Goddard termed as assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled when it comes to this. So when you're visualizing your DCA, you want to visualize the end result and feel as if this is already in your life. How does it feel to have the thing that you're going for? And you're going to feel that as you visualize it. Throughout this week, I would also recommend catching yourself when you are thinking thoughts you don't want. So just catch yourself when you're eating something in the buffet you don't like. Just wake yourself up, give yourself a tap on the shoulder, take a step back, realize what's happened, it's perfectly fine, and then make a new choice. Now, you don't need to make a choice that's well beyond your capacity right now. You just reach for the best thought that's within range. You don't need to go to a 0 to 100. You can do this in degrees. So if you're thinking a certain thought that's very negative, what's a slightly higher thought from there? Then once you get to the slightly higher thought, let's say you've gone 3 rows up in the buffet, what's something that's now more closer because you're there? Go 3 more rows up. And so you can get to where you want to go, or a much higher thought, through degrees, and that can happen pretty quickly. You don't need to go from 0 to 100, which then makes you feel bad because you might not be able to connect to that. You don't need to jump in this huge leap. Just reach for the best next thing that's within range for you in the buffet. And the last thing is to do exactly the same thing for your emotions. Your emotions are a great guiding system to let you know how you are doing. They're not here to beat you up. When you're in negative emotions, it's telling you that you're off track, and it's trying to give you feedback to get back on track. So when you're not feeling so good, you can be like, okay, well, what am I thinking about? That's probably leading to that. What am I dwelling upon? Okay, let's not change it, but let's choose something different. And once again, use the same strategy I just mentioned for thoughts, just do it in degrees, reach for the best next thing you can, and choose something new in the buffet. Now, you can absolutely add some more things in here, some more activities that you feel would be useful personally to you based on your situation. But even if you did just what I recommended here and you do it diligently and you actually did it for a week, you are absolutely going to notice changes. You're only a week away from starting this process in a very, very powerful way. And if you really do this, I can promise you by the end of it, you're going to see things a lot differently. Again, if you actually stick with it. This is an extreme approach, but it gets extreme results. Now, like I said, do not take this challenge on if you don't know what a DCA is, which I mentioned in this video exactly how to create one. And if you do not have one in general, I would highly recommend that you do this because it is so hard to create reality in the ways that you want when you do not have a DCA or your dreams and other things mapped out.